Namaskar. Today we will study the difference between tumor and cancer. So, whenever there is new growth in our body, that new growth may be for some homeostasis regions, for example, during embryogenesis, during regeneration and repair, due to hormonal stimulation, the growth due to hormonal stimulation, or due to hyperplasia, there may be new growth, but that is normal. Sometimes this new growth is converted to neoplasm or tumor. So, neoplasm or tumor, that is not normal, there is abnormal mass of tissue, and here the growth is there because there is loss of control and regulation of replication. So, in the cell cycle we have some positive regulators and negative regulators of cell cycle. So, the cell division, we can say that there are some positive regulators of cell cycle like cyclin dependent kinases, and there can be some negative regulators of cell cycle at the checkpoints, checkpoint 1 and checkpoint 2. For this you can refer to our earlier classes, and there are some negative regulators like p53 gene, retinoblastoma gene. So, how they negatively regulate the cell cycle, you can refer to our earlier classes on these subjects. So, usually if there is abnormal cell division, then the negative regulators, they stop the DNA synthesis, they undergo repair. However, if there is mutation of these negative regulators or activation of these positive regulators, then there will be formation of abnormal mass of tissue, that is called the tumor or neoplasm. Now, this tumor can be of two types, benign and malignant. If it is located at one place, if it is localized, then we call it as benign, and if it spreads, it is not localized to a certain place, then we call it as malignant. And when this tumor becomes malignant, we call it as cancer. So, we can say all the tumors are not cancers, but all the cancers are tumors. So, if it is localized, it is benign; if it spreads, it is malignant. So, let us see the differences between tumor and cancer, or benign tumor and malignant tumor. Benign tumor is slow growing, resemble normal cells, remain localized, and usually not harmful. Whereas the malignant tumor proliferate rapidly, we call it as uncontrolled proliferation, and for details of uncontrolled proliferation you can refer to our video. Maybe in the next video we will discuss on uncontrolled proliferation. That means the cell cycle is not controlled, the positive regulators and negative regulators are not functioning, the negative regulators are not controlling the proliferation, and if they are mutated, then there is uncontrolled proliferation. There are several other regions of uncontrolled proliferation also. For example, there is increased telomerase activity, and there is role of growth factors, there is disposal of abnormal cells by apoptosis, there is tumor angiogenesis. So many factors are there. We will discuss in detail in another video on uncontrolled proliferation. So, because of that, the tumor, benign tumor, becomes cancer, and if only uncontrolled proliferation is there, then also it will be benign. But when there is addition of dedifferentiation, invasiveness and metastasis, then actually benign becomes malignant. So initially it is uncontrolled proliferation, and when there is addition of dedifferentiation, invasiveness and metastasis, then it becomes cancer. So there no more there will be normal cells, and no more they will remain localized. So what is this dedifferentiation? Normally when daughter cells get matured, they eventually differentiate and behave like their parents. For example, muscle cells. So the new muscle cells will start contracting, because contraction is the function of these muscle cells. But what happens in case of cancer cells, there is de-differentiation, there is no differentiation. For example, pancreas. Pancreas, if there is pancreatic tumor, and then this normal pancreatic cell has some function and morphology, but the pancreatic tumors do not behave as the normal pancreatic cells. So if there is de-differentiation or poor differentiation, they multiply faster than a normal cell. So no more they will resemble normal cells, and there is loss of function, and morphologically also they are not same as the normal cells. Then if we see the normal cells are restricted to a certain tissue, so liver cells are restricted to liver, cardiac cells are restricted to heart, cardiac cells are not found in liver cells. But what happens due to mutations of some genes, there will be no constraint like this, and cells from one tissue can slip or invade to the nearby organs. For example, cells of rectum can spread to the nearby, say, pelvis, and the pelvic organs are invaded. So, and that process is called invasiveness. So this invasiveness or invasion occurs because of development of an enzyme called metalloproteinase, which dissolves the matrix. So suppose these are the cells, this is the intracellular matrix, and this matrix is dissolved by the metalloproteinase released by the cancer cells. So there is invasion of the cancer cells to nearby areas. So that means it will start spreads. Then another function is metastasis, and the metastasis are the secondary tumors that have been released from the initial or primary tumor, and have reached other sites through blood vessels or lymphatics. So either through blood or through lymph, that means through blood vessels or through lymphatic vessels, the secondary tumors, they will go from one place to other areas. For example, say one tumor is there in the bone, say in the femur. From femur, if it goes to the lungs, that means it has to be carried through either blood or lymph, and that process is called metastasis. And metastases are the secondary tumors, and because of these secondary tumors spreading to other parts, there will be development of the malignancy in other areas. That means it spreads. So because of the invasiveness and metastasis, the cancer cells spread to nearby areas or maybe distant areas, and it becomes malignant. So then we call it as cancer. So benign tumors are usually not harmful, and we can do the surgery to remove it, and there is no problem. But malignant tumor, it is difficult, and it may inflict damage on the surrounding cells, and are harmful if left untreated. So it has to be treated by surgery or by chemotherapy, or by radiation therapy, or a combination of all these three: surgery, radiation therapy, and chemotherapy. So this is all about the tumor and cancer, and let us see the nomenclature. And usually the tumor ends with the three letters OMA, OMA, and so if the tumor affects the surface epithelium, we call it as papilloma, and papilloma in case of tumor, and if it is cancer, we call it as carcinoma. So if you see the nomenclature, papilloma is a tumor of surface epithelium, carcinoma is a cancer of surface epithelium. Similarly, adenoma is a tumor of glandular epithelium, adenocarcinoma is a cancer of glandular epithelium. Melanoma is a tumor of pigment cell, melanosarcoma is a cancer of pigment cells. Myoma is a tumor of muscle tissue, myosarcoma or leiomyosarcoma is a cancer of muscle tissue. Similarly, fibroma is a tumor of fibrous tissue, fibrosarcoma is a cancer of fibrous tissue. Neurofibroma is a tumor of nerve sheath, and neurofibrosarcoma is a cancer of nerve sheath. So these tumors, mainly the cancers, can be either solid tumors or liquid tumors. Liquid tumors are the hematological tumors, the blood tumors, and so the hematopoietic tissue of bone marrow, if it is affected, we call it as myeloma. This is a type of cancer. And if it is affecting lymphatic tissue, we call it as lymphoma, and it can be Hodgkin's lymphoma or non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and if it is affecting leukocytes, then we call it as leukemia. So in this way, the nomenclature can also be different for tumor and cancer. So this is all about the difference between tumor and cancer. Thank you.